Hello there, my name is Ian Antonio Patterson, coming to you again for episode 11 of Life is Feeling, Counting the Ways. And today we're going to be having a little discussion with my brother, none other than my brother Kurt Orlando Patterson, joining us from all the way over there in Jamaica. And we are going to be talking about a student of mine who has found herself to have a very strong aptitude for languages, but sometimes she is a little bit challenged by mathematics, like many people I know who have a thing for languages. Now, she's interested in pursuing a career in real estate. And from my perspective as a language teacher, with some experience with mathematics at high school level as well as university level, my advice to her was, at first thought, just out of the blue, my quick advice to her was to be mindful of mathematical concepts that are perhaps more relevant to her career interest. All in an attempt, of course, to make the mathematical concepts generally appear more tactile and useful to her at this point in time. Now, at first thought, the concept of interest and compound interest and present value equations and such like came to mind. Now, I must say I am not a mathematician, and neither am I at liberty to say who exactly this course participant is or was, but I do think that today's conversation might help anyone facing the same or a similar dilemma. Now, there are also some insights that I gathered from 3 other sources, which are the Western Governors University, Stanford University, and also Wikipedia. These insights are on philosophical concepts or paradigms as they relate to mathematics and our understanding of the world. Now, lest I forget, I wanted to add a splash of color to the proceedings. So there is some extra special backing music that you'll hear probably right now and towards the end of the episode. If you're interested in finding out who exactly this musician is, just check out the show notes for the episode at www.lifeisfeeling.com and look for episode 11. So I hope you enjoy the show, and without further ado, let's get to it.
Something we're feeling. Yes.
Okay, well, yeah, to answer part A, your suggestion of present value, I think, is the best mathematics you could use to communicate the importance of it to her. However, part B answer now, I would try to stimulate her existing love of languages by communicating to her that mathematics is just a precise language. And to communicate that, before I even get into the maths part, before you scare them away, because people sometimes shut down when you present to them the thing they fear, I would just speak about the importance of insider languages. For instance, expert languages. A doctor may have big, long words, but when you actually understand the meaning of the words, you find that the word is in parts, and each part has a specific meaning within the field. And once you are aware of that specific meaning, the word, rather than being complex as it looks to an outsider, is actually very simple, more simple even than in casual language, where the stakes are low and there isn't such a great need for precision. So when a person talks about, say, deoxyribonucleic, it is one oxygen removed, it's ribose, and it's a part of the nucleus. It tells you all of that.
So you're
and
saying
mathematics
what?
Is
precisely that. So
I'm saying that mathematics is a precise way for people who are dealing with certain high stakes things, where it's important to communicate precisely what you mean across space and time, such as when you're coordinating a big project or where ambiguity has a large price. Mathematics is a precise language. It's just another language. And it appears complicated from the outside, the same way a word like encephalitis would look complicated from the outside. But once you realize cephala means brain, and itis means some kind of syndrome, you realize that, okay, here's a precise way where I can just tell you one word and you kind of know what exactly is going on.
So coming back to what you said earlier, it's like a word, comparing language and mathematics. The word comprises 2 or 3 parts that tell you exactly what is affected, how a disease in medicine expresses itself. For example, where it's located, what the symptoms are, and maybe another aspect of it. 3 aspects of it in the word, and offers a kind of precision. 2 parts or 3 parts, okay.
Yes, and mathematics is about relationships. It's really a quick way of showing the relationships between 2 things. So, when they say something is always gonna, if one thing increases by 1, the other side is gonna increase twice. It just shows the relationship between those 2 things. And if you break down an equation, a simple equation, the equal sign just means this is the middle of the relationship. This is the thing that bridges the 2 things.
It's a point of equilibrium, kind of. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the bridge, yes.
But I wouldn't say point of equilibrium.
It's not equilibrium.
I wouldn't say point of equilibrium. That makes it more mathematical. Remember, you don't want to show them maths, you want to show them language what them used to. So you have 2 things at the 2 ends, and the thing in the middle tell you the relationship between them. Like you have a man and a woman, and the thing between them is marriage. Yeah, you have a dog and a man, and the relationship between them is, let's say, master and pet. Really master.
But between them is
you
food.
Have 2 things.
Like with cats,
right.
With cats at least the relationship is food. Yeah, but dogs is different.
Yes. So, like in a sentence, you have subject, object, and something that tells you the relationship between the subject and object. Is the object on top of the subject? Is the subject on top of the object? Is the object being driven by the subject? Them kind of things. It's the same thing, but we use the numbers just to make it compact. It's not even, I scare them and make it seem like it's numbers we're dealing with. We're dealing with relationships between concepts or between phenomena, between whatever, just relationships.
Life is Feeling Counting the Ways is a self-sponsored independent podcast brought to you by Antonio Media in association with English Coach Podcast Living the Language, and can be found at www.lifeisfeeling.com. So why exactly am I publishing this episode here and not at the English Coach Podcast? Well, the English Coach Podcast is a little bit closer and a little bit more conservative, closer to my language training practice. And this today, even though we're talking a little bit about mathematics, has a lot to do with feeling. Now, feeling, what do I mean by feeling? It has a lot of meanings to different people. And some of these are, for example, a feeling of confidence that is needed to become fluent in a language. The feeling of persuasion that must come across when you try to communicate with someone. Feeling can also be defined as an emotional state, a reaction, an attitude, or an opinion that guides your actions. The capacity to experience the sense of touch, in this case, perhaps the ability to experience and sense abstract concepts as they relate to real things that we do in life. Feeling can also be a sensitivity to or an intuitive understanding of a thing. It can also be described in this context, again, mathematics and language, the freedom you have to examine or search something by touch or seeking out your own experience. You can touch or be touched by ideas, worldviews, or explanation models. I think that is pretty clear to all of us. Now, feeling can also be described as an idea or belief, especially a vague or irrational one. Now, speaking of feeling again, and speaking of what some people might sometimes call irrational, many teachers I know are guided by the constructivist paradigm. Now, what exactly is the constructivist paradigm? Now, I've taken the liberty of pulling some definitions from various websites. All the sources will be available in the show notes. So if you're interested in finding out where exactly I got these quotations and definitions from, just check out the show notes page for this episode and, you'll be able to find out for yourself. Now, constructivism. Constructivism is described as an important learning theory that educators use to help their students to learn. Constructivism is based on the idea that people actively construct or make their own knowledge, and that reality is determined by your experiences as a learner. Basically, learners use their previous knowledge as a foundation and build on it with new things that they learn. All right, well, we touched on the constructivist paradigm, but there are other philosophies, so to speak, that determine this whole idea and our understanding of mathematics in general. And one of the persons who significantly affected our general understanding of mathematics and, how it expresses itself in our world was a person called Kant. Now, Kant was a student and a teacher of mathematics throughout his career, and his reflections on mathematics and mathematical practice had a profound impact on his philosophical thought. Now, in contradiction slightly to what we just said, Kant concludes that the mathematical method cannot be applied to achieve philosophical results for the primary reason that geometricians acquire their concepts by means of synthesis, whereas philosophers can only acquire their concepts by means of analysis. And that completely changes the method of thought. He also goes on to distinguish the use of the two terms synthetic and analytic to distinguish two mutually exclusive ways in which the subject and predicate concepts relate to one another in distinct judgments of any kind. Methodological contrast between two modes of argumentation, one synthetic or progressive, and the other analytic or regressive. While philosophical cognition is confined to the results of an abstract conceptual analysis, mathematical cognition is a result of a chain of inferences that is always guided by intuition. That is, by a concrete representation of its objects. Now, coming back to constructivism a little bit, and maybe this makes sense to some of the persons out there who are a little bit more keen on the idea of philosophy around mathematics and, the constructivist paradigm and so on. Another quotation that I pulled, again, the sources will be listed in the show notes. It says that in the philosophy of mathematics, constructivism asserts that it is necessary to find or construct a specific example of a mathematical object in order to prove that an example exists. Contrastingly, in classical mathematics, one can prove the existence of a mathematical object without finding that object explicitly, by assuming its non-existence, then deriving a contradiction from that assumption. Such a proof by contradiction might be called non-constructive, and a constructivist might reject it. The constructivist viewpoint involves a verificational interpretation of the existential qualifier, which is at odds with its classical interpretation. So then, I hope this slightly scientific or philosophical background helped to shed some light on this light discussion we're having today, or maybe sparked some further thought or some opinions on the topic. And at this point, I would just like to say, without further ado, on with the show.
I scare them and make it seem like it's numbers we're dealing with. We're dealing with relationships between concepts or between phenomena, or between whatever, just relationships. And once you start to see it as a language, then maybe your natural love the person have a language would encourage them to want to explore this language that great thinkers want to pass on their knowledge through this language and why they choose this language. This is a language of thinking. It is immune to changes in time. It is immune to changes in space. If you say 2 plus 2 equals 4 in Albania, it's the same 2 plus 2 equals 4 2,000 years later in Egypt. It's like a super language.
Understand. Well, as I said, I recognize from the language courses, I recognize like a certain inspiration and a certain fire, a certain potential in some of the students. But they, for example, they love language, and you see that kind of fire in their eyes. Yeah, thinking of one student in particular right now, and it would be so nice if she takes some of that energy and apply it to the same motivation, apply it to mathematics, because it's not just present value, it's not just time value of money or interest or compound or anything like that, but also, as you say, precision. For example, the way you use the pilots talking using mathematics, doctors using it. Sometimes there are high things at stake, whether it be great wealth or lives. Yeah, that's what I got from what you said first, and yeah, man, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, man. So to summarize my side, the key is to translate maths into a language, because it is a language.
Yeah,
that's all it is, a language.
Good. Yeah, man. I appreciate that. I mean, there are other people as well who want to be like engineers. Some of them even want to be something like customs officers, or they want to be police officers, right? And they're okay with the language, but when it comes to mathematics, them have a kind of a fear, and I just want to help them to find a bridge to probably, as you rightly said, recognize it as a kind of a language just the same.
What I would do to begin the process is look at a simple sentence like the book is on top of the table, and you say the book is one side of the equation, the table is the other side of the equation, and the on top of is the operator, the plus, the minus, the divide. So I would put one sum on one side and one sentence on one side and say, this is saying the relationship between the book and the table is that the book is on top in a superior height position to the table. And then I would get the thing was said 3 is greater than 2 and put the greater than sign and say, this is saying 3 is in a superior position to 2.
Yes.
And then I put those together in one eyeful and then say, everything is just a more complicated version of this.
Yes, one eyeful. Well, one eyeful, I like that.
Yeah, well, people have to see concepts together sometimes. See it together mean a lot.
Yeah, one eyeful. Yeah, I like that. One eyeful. Well, yeah, man, I'm thinking also of, you're talking right, talking about, I recognize like relative clauses and conjunctions. They are correlative conjunctions, subordinate conjunctions, and mostly the relative clause, which is like the man who and the thing that is on the table. Language is used then to define the relationship between the subject and the object, or between whatever. Yeah, man, I think that's probably the best way. Oh, man, thanks for that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
man.
Also, I have album for sale, but all sold out. But if you guys have iPhone or Telegram, I can still send to you if you guys interested to buy album. I'm recording on the street. All the music is improvised, so you guys creating this music also. So if you guys interested, please come and buy album. I got 9 more days here, so last 9 shows. Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Well, enough respect, man. Enough respect.
yes.
Yeah, man. You know, I'm from Jamaica. I love the music, you know. Yeah, man. Love it.
Perfect.
And you guys are definitely gonna be on the show, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.